descent, and that also gets...
Although, to be fair, there's one ginger.
Yeah,
there is one ginger, which would be my son if he was there. You know, there are a lot of redheads in the old Jewish community. But yeah, it's good that he's there.
He's the Prince. He's the Prince Harry of the bunch.
All right. Well, let's
slight, isn't it?
Let's go on to the next one. What's the Guardian going with?
So the Guardian goes with warning that relief convoy for Gaza too little, too late. So quite a different angle from the Guardian, as one would expect. And they're saying that the humanitarian help won't be enough and it'll be too late. Pretty much what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
And then they have this other story, actually, Hamas killed my parents, which is actually a very moving story. And the subheading is "My family want peace, not revenge." So this is from someone who was in a small village near the Gaza Strip, and Hamas burned down their parents' house. They were hit with is it called a shoulder rocket? And so absolutely horrific. And he is calling for peace off the back of that rather than war. But of course, as we know from the other headlines, I mean, that's not going to happen, is it? So.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, I want peace. I think everybody sane wants peace. The question is, how is it achieved? You can't have it with a terrorist regime coming in and murdering, 1,400 of your citizens. So
yeah, there has to be some sort of response.
I just also want to say about this particular photo. Of course, it's the Guardian. They've got this horrible photo, and of course, no one wants any civilians to be harmed in any way. They have this photo up there. What I've noticed from all the photos that we covered on those headlines, none of them had a picture of a destroyed hospital. Why? I wonder why that is. Is it because there is no destroyed hospital? I guarantee you, if that hospital had been harmed in any way, there would be still photos everywhere, the 500 supposed dead, and then suddenly, because everybody messed up on it, suddenly it's just disappeared and it didn't happen. Anyway, that's just, again, me... that's what the Israeli government... Yeah, I've just fed that line good.
To the point they were making into this side story, I was listening to a podcast today and they made a really interesting point, which has stayed with me all day. The idea of when an innocent life is taken, whether it's at the hands of a terrible terrorist deliberately killing this person to achieve terror, or accidentally almost, or because you are in taking on some sort of military action, it will cause the same grief.
Yeah.
And that's worth considering, and that's what this story is about, the idea that you could lose a member of your family but still have the ability, the perception to be able to take a step back and realise peace will be the best end game because other people are going to lose relatives in the same way. And if you all just get impassioned by that, you're just going to have the war side of it. You need people like this to be doing some talking.
Yes, absolutely. God, you're like Gandhi.
Thank you.
To me.
Thin. Oh, no.
And bald. What's the Times gone with? Then, Steve?
They have do your bit to ease Israel crisis, Sunak urges Saudis, but there is a story on the side that we can talk about.
Oh, yeah?
Childhood obesity rates fall towards 20-year low. Don't get too excited about it, really, because it's just that, over the last couple of years, kids might have been sitting around not doing so much for a while, and now they're doing a bit more, and the rates are kind of going back in that direction. Which is annoying for us, because we like to moan about kids being fat. But it's now only 9% in terms of obese. If you add in overweight to that, though, it's still huge figures. No pun intended. 36.7% of Year 6 children were above a healthy weight. Yeah. So we can still mock them for that. But it's all to do with the National Child Measurement Programme. And I've been watching a lot of The Reckoning, so that sounds dodgy, but I don't think it is.
That does sound pretty... I mean, Nick, what do you think of this? I mean, 9.2% children obese, that still seems very high.
Yes, they're not quite as fat as during COVID, but still fat. And
so it's a good story.
Yeah, I mean, it's good news, but it's not great in the longer term. I mean, there's an interesting line here. The reason for this disparity is clear, and they're talking about the statistics and so on. They say eating healthily is simply unaffordable for many families across the UK right now. But I did think eating less is still cheaper. I hate to be some sort of Tory or something, but, that's the cheapest option still, isn't it?
You should run for the Tory party.
There's a kind of Leo Kearse kind of line. I'm just, because he's not here, I've kind of gone with the...
Stepping in there.
Yeah.
Right, well, look, Nick, why don't you finish on the Daily Star, then?
It's important to finish on the Daily Star, absolutely. They've got freeze. Cops arrest Gems raider who fooled shop staff by standing in window for hours pretending to be a mannequin. All fun and games, except he faces 10 years in prison now for burglary and theft.
Well, you can tell that that's not in the UK, then, is it?
Oh,
because he's actually going to go to prison.
Got caught. Yeah, I see what you mean. One favourite line. Actually, this is from the Sun version, but they said the man stood frozen in the window and tried.
We got an image of him there. He's very good.
Yeah, he's very good.
Very, very good. I mean, I look at that and I think mannequin.
Absolutely. It says here he tried to blend in with the other mannequins. I like the word other there, as if he is actually so good, he actually is a mannequin, but now he wants to just blend in with the other ones.
Have you seen that film? I mean, Steve, is there any possibility that he was magically brought to life for the love of someone?
No. And actually, if you rewatch that film, it's a bit dodgy, isn't it? It's got sex toy vibes.
Oh, really? OK.
You don't think?
No, I haven't watched it in years, but now that you said that, I'm going to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Great song, though. Great song to go with it.
And, Steve, where are the police looking? Covent Garden?
They should, because that's where they do their training, isn't
Yeah.
it? Just if kids playing statues these days are starting them on a path to crime.
It's very, very dodgy. Right, that is the front pages all tied up. Come back after these messages for Dr. Death, dangerous water pistols, and anti-Semitism, where I might just have an opinion. See you in a sec.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best.
Bellissima.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with you three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Chevy Jace, he is Steve Martin, and he is Martin Little. And together we are the Three Amigos. Why did you not? We practiced this all day.
Will anyone
and then
get
you're
that?
suddenly pretending that you don't know what... God, Steve, I can't believe
Who's Martin Little? It's Martin Short.
Yeah.
There's no, you just invented a character for me, like Stuart Little. That's a mouse.
That's bad, my bad. Okay.
They bleeped out, on the first time I saw it, they had to bleep out one of their jokes, and Martin Short has the joke of, that's a mail plane. How can you tell it's a mail plane? Because you can see it's little, and they bleeped out the words.
Oh, yeah, that's funny. One of my favourite films, but I didn't know it was Martin Little. Thank you.
Short.
Right, after that, let's do this incredibly depressing story. Steve, and we have Friday's Daily Mail, and I am about to get cancelled.
Yep. Thanks for this gear change. Failure to integrate huge numbers of migrants to UK life has fuelled the normalisation of Israel hatred and anti-Semitism in Britain. This is according to a counter-extremism commissioner. Robin Simcox, don't Google that last bit, has blamed failed policy of a mix of mass migration and multiculturalism. The rest of the story also talks heavily about our propensity, our goal, our ideal of freedom of speech leaves a gap for people to just spread some hate. That's kind of the paradox of free speech anyway, that you're always trying to battle that. It's been disagreed with. There's Tom Tugendhat said, I think the United Kingdom is a country and environment in which we take all threats to communities extremely seriously. I thought it was interesting that the two people disagreeing are slightly talking about different things.
That's exactly what I picked up on.
All right.
Yeah. No, exactly that. He's answering a different point. One is talking about the point within anti-Semitism within the Muslim community, and the other one is basically saying, yeah, but we'll protect Jewish people, don't worry about it. Yeah. That's not the same point at all, is it, Nick?
No, but it's... And Robin Simcox's point is undeniable, really, isn't it? Basically, the speed, the number in terms of immigration, and then the sheepishness about our own values, and the fact that we don't talk enough about integration anymore, which is what he's alluding to. That is a massive problem. And it only gets harder politically, if you think about it. The more the demographics of the country change, it doesn't get easier to say something like, well, you should probably learn the language. It only gets harder politically to say that, even though the need becomes more pressing. But obviously it gets harder because you've got different groups who say, well, that's racist or something. So it doesn't get any easier to make these points. And we've failed to make the case for our culture and for integrating. And that's become a threat now, as we see. It's always been a threat, but it's becoming more obvious. And Steve makes a good point about the paradox of free speech. That is the issue. You could argue our system kind of invites its own destruction, because if you have to have people, if you say, no, Hamas are free to, people are free to say we should, obliterate our entire system, they're using free speech, and they would have us, ideally in their minds, put in a system that would obviously not have free speech. So that's the problem with that.
Yeah, and then, of course, we're talking about who's free speech, because there's a van that has posters of the kidnapped victims captured by Hamas, and it's driving around London, and they were stopped from going into any areas that had the Palestinian vigil yesterday, or protest, whatever you want to call it, and because they're Jewish, and the police were like, no, you can't go in there, and we're basically detaining them because of the threat to these Jewish people. So it's like, well, wait a minute, whose freedom are we protecting here? It's like, what, we're protecting the freedom to not be attacked. Well, that's not the same as the freedom of speech, surely. It's taking away their freedom of speech. Anyway, there is an interesting debate here, of course, but unfortunately now we're sort of moving beyond debate, where we're seeing it in real life. The other issue that I would say that he raises is Tom Tugendhat makes a point about how his wife speaks French at home and this and that. That's not really the point in terms of integration as such. The fact that we're talking about value systems here, and I guess one of those values is free speech.
Yeah, his point was a bit more showing off how middle class he is. Yeah. My wife speaks French.
My children speak 5 languages, or whatever. Yes, anyway. Oh, my gosh. We got through it, but I'm living it. The Guardian next. And, Nick, it seems like the new Rishi used to be the old Death.
Yeah, Science Advisor referred to Rishi Sunak as Dr. Death COVID inquiry here, and this was Dame Angela McLean in a message that seemed to refer to the Eat Out, Help Out scheme, and it turns out it could have been that. She wasn't absolutely certain because it was a long time ago, but the message, the reference was Dr. Death, the Chancellor, and the assumption was it was probably the Eat Out to Help Out, which is a pity because that was a perfectly good scheme. But of course, if you're concerned with infectious disease modelling, like this guy John Edmonds, who was also very against Sunak's actions, then of course you don't care. If you don't care about the economy, if you don't care about the long-term health concerns, if you're totally focused on infectious disease, of course you see it like that. But actually, Eat Out to Help Out was to help the hospitality sector, which was massively struggling at the time. And they do concede here, this person, John Edmonds, Professor of Infectious Disease Modelling, it does concede that the Eat Out to Help Out didn't actually caused a second wave. He just says the optics were terrible. Well, so what? I mean, why is that so important? Isn't it more important to save businesses? So I don't like that this narrative is being implemented. And whereas the people who really should be questioned, Matt Hancock, some of the things he did, you know, the nursing homes and so on, you have someone here, a spokesperson for COVID-19 bereaved families, and that is horrible, obviously, to be a bereaved family. But they're sort of blaming Sunak and saying, otherwise my mum might still be with me, which I just don't think is...
Also, might is a big word there.
Yeah, it's the lockdown cultists, they're sort of getting away with it in this narrative. And Sunak's being blamed for what I think was a reasonable scheme. Let's look at the lockdown. Where's the proof that actually worked? We know it has massive costs. Where's the proof that it actually worked?
Well, Steve, it is interesting here because, as they point out, as Nick said, that there's no evidence that it did actually increase deaths. It seems more like this person, she's angry because she was wrong.
Well, I think everyone's forgetting that time was elapsing at the time. We're all looking back at it and saying...
I love that time elapses at the time.
No, but because the problem with remembering stuff is you remember it all at once, as if when Eat Out to Help Out was brought out, which I just want to say, when Eat Out to Help Out was announced, I thought it was great until I realised it was about going out to a restaurant rather than an evening in with the missus.
Very nice.
Shame that. But I just bring the mood back down from that. I lost both parents to COVID during the pandemic. So this is the thing that impacts me.
I wish I hadn't come to you now.
But I remember, yeah, it's I'm bringing the joy. But when Eat Out to Help Out was announced, we knew less than we knew a year later. And people are looking at it and going, oh, that over-strict end of thing proves that all lockdowns are wrong. Nope. And some people who say you should lock down earlier proves that we should have had more restrictions all through. Nope. You didn't know what was happening right at the start, so you can make an argument about erring on the cautious side. When you did know what was happening, you should have been unlocking quicker. It was always meant to be a short, sharp, break-it lockdown and then get back to it. And this was what we were trying to do at the time, get the economy going again.
Yeah, which is, I guess, the point why we're having this inquiry, to find out these things so we can look at them and hopefully look at the data without getting emotional.
But, I'm really sorry to hear about Steve's parents. I didn't know that. But one problem here is that you had this Dame Angela McLean saying, who is this bleep, and then a very derogatory term I can't say. And she was talking about Carl Hennigan, who's Professor of Evidence-Based Medicine at Oxford University. So the other thing that happened is a certain narrative emerged, and if you weren't part of it, you were an idiot, even if you actually were an expert. So that just annoys me that that's still being, that view has not been challenged sufficiently.
Absolutely. And I am an idiot. I just want to, there's no, I'm not trying to say what my view is, but yeah, if she'd called me that, I'd be fine with it. More mail now, and Steve, crime's up. Good thing we have loads of prison space to deal with it.
Shoplifting, 25% increase, actually. Also, knife and gun crimes been going up, robberies and car thefts in the past 12 months. So these are new figures. It's the police that have been recording crime in England and Wales have seen a 4% higher rate of crime than in the previous year. 6.7 million crimes recorded, according to the Office of National Statistics. You can compare this... Actually, before we move on to that, whenever the government talks about crime figures, they miss out fraud. They now have a policy of not talking about fraud figures, which account for just less than half of all crimes. And then you'll get ministers saying, over the last 10 years, crime has actually dropped by around a half. I wonder why it has. In the same way that if I don't stand on the weighing scales, I sit on a chair and put my feet on them, I can say I've lost weight. But then you can compare that to the crime survey for England and Wales, which does include fraud and stuff. That's seen a decrease in crime by 10%. It could be that the police are working harder and doing their job more.
It could be,
Just saying could.
It is slightly strange here because some of the statistics seem to saying crime's going up, and then you've got other crime. It's reported crime that's gone up, but actual overall crimes that have gone down. That seems to be the way that I'm reading it.
Well, it depends what you look at. Robberies are up, car crimes are up, knife offences up. But then, as Steve says, if you look at the crime survey for England and Wales, it says there's a 28% drop in criminal damage, 13% reduction in fraud. So it could just be that tech's getting better, so fraud's harder to do, or people are just getting thicker. But they're sort of less... You'd sort of rather the knife crime was down, wouldn't you? So it depends what kind of crime you're talking about. The suggestion for dealing with shoplifting is that you make assaulting, threatening or abusing a retail worker a specific crime. But my idea is just impose the existing laws you already have, like theft is bad. Like, don't we have a law about that already? Why do we need retail worker threatening theft is particularly bad? Can't we just stop people robbing stuff?
I don't know if you've been in a shop where you see some shoplifting going on. It always bothers me that I'm wasting my life queuing to pay while someone's out of there while I'm waiting for a teenager to come and approve my age for a can of Monster.
Tell your wife to pay for her stuff. Let's go to the iNews. And Nick, if you've got a dog, maybe then you don't need me to talk you to sleep every night.
Yeah, this is American XL bully The RSPCA and Blue Cross still rehoming dogs despite expected ban and attacks. So the RSPCA, because they love animals sort of seemingly more than humans, they're saying they're just going to continue to rehome these dogs until the law of change actually comes into force. But I'm just a layman here, but surely this means these dogs will have to be destroyed at some point anyway. You're just housing all these dogs that are about to be banned housing.
It's worse than that, Steve, because these dogs are now harming their new owners. So how culpable are these dog charities when they sort of paw off, sorry for the pun, a dog that then, chews up their new owner?
Yeah, well, I mean, in terms of the law coming in, actually, it wouldn't mean you've got to destroy the dog. It would mean rules like they have to wear a muzzle when they're at the house, and you have to register them and apply for approval.
I've done that with my
beforehand.
kids, it's fine.
Does it work? They don't mind.
It
Chafes a little, doesn't it? The attacks, I suppose it's not just the RSPCA responsibility for rehoming the dog. It's also people who say, I want a dog, and they go and look at all the... They're informed of the details as well, that the ban could impact it. I was reading through some of the adverts for the dogs, and it does say that they're a breed that you might have some restrictions coming in. There's one that's for Betty, which it describes. It says, Betty is a chunky girl, full of fun and loves to... Actually, sorry, no, that was on FetLife. No, they do warn you about the dogs.
Well, they say, like, she's large in size, strong at times, needs a capable and competent owner. For me, that is, like, red flag.
I know.
Do not get this dog.
I know. Another one said that the dog showed no signs of aggression. Yet, you know what I mean? That's quite...
That's what dog owners always say, isn't it? They always it's never bitten anybody, never hurt it, until some poor kid gets in their way.
Yeah. I read an interview, I think it was in the Times, about the guy who originally bred this breed in America, and he says it's about, they've now been bred with other species, breeds. But he said, we were trying to get one that looked all muscle, like a weightlifter, but had a docile temperament. Why do you want a dog that looks like a weightlifter? If you want a docile dog, get a Labrador, and don't have one that looks like it's henching, it's going to headbutt you.
Yeah, and how many dogs that look like that would have a docile temperament? It's almost impossible. I want to really chill Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, but you've got that. You've got that physical intensity combined with the sort of calm...
I'm very, very special.
Yeah. Finishing the section with The Guardian, and Steve, it seems like the police are either dancing away at carnivals or pointing guns at kids. They need to find sort of a middle ground, right?
Dancing at kids, pointing guns at carnivals.
Pointing guns at kids, dancing at carnivals.
There we go, all in one. Yeah. The story is they met a rammed boy, 13, playing with a water pistol, knocked him off his bike, pointed guns at him, then put him in handcuffs. The boy was black. The mother says this wouldn't have happened if he was white. My left-wing vibes, my left-wing friends would be saying, like, this is a time to be angry and hate the police. Yeah. Then, in the same article, the boy was playing with a water pistol with his sister. He had a blue one. The sister had a pink one. Gender-specific toys. Quick, someone point a gun at these kids. So, yeah, I mean, you'd hope that the police would turn up with common sense.
You would hope that, and then afterwards, Nick, the mum was complaining, and I think any parent, if this had happened to them, their child was rammed off their bike and machine guns pointed at them, and this police has said, oh, you're being really aggressive.
Yeah.
What? Of course you're going to be aggressive.
Well, yeah. I'm quite impressed the police got out and actually dealt with it, though. But it turns out it was the wrong crime to deal with. I'm impressed at the response time. But yeah, obviously it's not pleasant.
Yeah, it's great with 13-year-old kids.
Yeah. But it's obviously the breakdown of we used to have the archetypal bobbies on the beat. You have a police presence. They only had sticks. But what you get now in our society, you got a lot of crime goes unpunished. They just leave it. But when things do happen, they can be really extreme like this because the police are then heavily armed. So then they're pointing submachine guns at a child, which is obviously horrendous. But it's kind of like, it's not enough police, and then it's suddenly too much. We want to sort of somewhere in between there, don't we?
And apparently it's because they have protocols on how you deal with a crime when they've reported that there's firearms there. But turn up and see that it's a water pistol and stop handcuffing.
But someone must have pranked them or something to even report there's someone with a gun. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we're at the halfway point, but no bedtime yet. Coming up, we've got a cure for homosexuality, sex workers and fat kids. See you in 2.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to ordinary people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
Defense.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get straight to Friday's Daily Mail. And Nick, it's not like Rishi has enough on his plate.
Yeah, Rishi Sunak will go ahead with conversion therapy ban after warnings of revolt by ministers and Tory MPs, despite fears parents could be criminalised for legitimate conversations with children about gender identity, which is, of course, the concern. And it's mad that a Conservative government is doing this. This is an obvious one to get rid of. It's a terrible idea. You won't be able to speak to young people and say, are you sure you want to change your gender forever medically? Obviously, you should be allowed to do that. Now, to be fair, Kemi Badenoch is saying it won't do that. She's saying that the move can be implemented without a chilling effect, though the bill's still being drawn up. But we'll actually have a more leftist policy than Scotland here. I mean, how embarrassing is that? They've postponed the ban on conversion therapy amid warnings that could criminalise parents who question their child's wish to change gender. So Scotland has done the sensible thing, and we haven't. That's how bad this is.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, what are the dangers here? Like, sort of explain it for layman's terms.
It all comes down to details. The idea that if you have a conversation where, as Nick says, if you question someone's
gender identity,
or not even question, if they say they're questioning their gender identity, and you say, "Oh, are you sure?"
Yeah.
Under one version of this, that seems like you could be getting involved in a conversion. But I don't know, it's about the details. So they've promised that we will see the details of the draft bill to actually know if that would be included. Because you could, of course, and this is true of all laws, you've got to have the detail to see what could accidentally be included.
Yeah.
And as long as it's paid attention to, and if Kemi Badenoch, which I believe is like the poster girl for lots of people who are on this show, if she thinks it can work, then maybe there is some detail.
She's very much on this issue. And, I mean, really, yeah, it's about therapists, it's about teachers, the threat possibly to them. But the other thing is why this bill is necessary. We already have laws that outlaw outlaw this for, sexuality already.
Yeah. Well, one reason is it's party political. I mean, Equalities Minister Stuart Andrew is threatening to quit if the measure's not brought forward. I mean, how mental is that?
Yeah.
So, it's appeasing members of your party with a bad policy.
All right, well, the Tories would never do that. Guardian now, and I'm having a lot of fun memories from your stag do, Steve.
Amsterdam sex workers protest against plan to move to red light district. I wish I remembered my stag do now. They are protesting against the mayor's plans to move their area of trade to a purpose-built erotic centre. There is nothing more unerotic than erotic centre. No, just away from the city centre. There's good parking. If that's what gets you going, you're in the wrong place. It's like they want to stop it being a sin city, so now they want to go for a sin out-of-town leisure
business park.
A business park with, It ruins the 15-minute city argument because, I mean, what, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes back, you only get 5 minutes. No, actually,
you don't need 50. Anyway.
That does work, doesn't it? Also, there was a bit where the sex workers are saying they are being held responsible for some of the issues around their trade, the criminals around there and the crowd surrounding their neon-lit booths. And that was a bit where I thought, oh, you're in a neon-lit booth and you presume no one will notice?
Yeah.
A crowd probably would, even if you did it, Josh. A few people would have a look. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily a sex thing. It's an eye catcher. One sex worker who identified herself as Lucy, but I believe you could call her any name, said that it was a gentrification project. So it's like an episode of At Pompeii where they're going to go on strike.
Yeah. What do you think, Nick?
Well, the idea, as you said, of an erotic retail park is problematic immediately. It'll be like going out to Disney World, but with better rides.
Very blue water.
There we go. And of course, they refer to these women as sex workers here, which is obviously a bit of a controversial term within fourth wave feminism, if anyone wants to tackle that one quickly.
What's the issue with it?
Fine,
because the idea is that calling them sex workers would mean that they have some sort of choice in the matter, whereas sort of second wave feminists would go, no, they're being exploited, and we're legitimising that exploitation.
I'm against all waves of feminism, so I never have to worry about it.
OK. We've got a meat story next in The Guardian. Let's go to our resident headliners meat expert, Nick Schaefer.
Oh, yeah. This is, crikey. Pity Lewis isn't here. What a pity. It's eating red meat twice a week may increase type 2 diabetes risk, study finds. And lo and behold, it would also reduce gas emissions and tackle climate change if we stopped eating red meat. And actually, there's the propaganda. It's the eat the bugs and be happy. And, of course, it's
This is propaganda from Big Veg.
It's Big Veg all over it. It's a dodgy study. I mean, people were asked to complete questionnaires about their diet every 2 to 4 years for up to 36 years. And those who ate most red meat had a 62% higher risk of developing the condition. So it's self-reporting. It's people who eat tons of burgers. And, their lifestyle's probably bad anyway. They're self-reporting that they eat more red meat. There's no link here between red meat. Meat is good. I hate to sound like Lewis Schaefer. Meat is good. And whatever they're saying is wrong.
OK, but I mean, Steve, it does seem to suggest that meat isn't good.
Yeah.
And processed meat even more so.
Yeah, but it's a weak study. Even Steve's going to admit that.
No, don't ruin this for me. I'm going to call up Lewis Schaefer and read this to him down the phone.
This is the most passionate. And a knight of Israel and God.
This is the one that really
This is the one where the fists come out.
I was reading this on the way and I was thinking, by the time you get to the second sentence, research from Harvard University, he'd be off criticising them. Oh, Harvard University, attack the source rather than the actual thing. He's dedicated his life to saying that everything gives you diabetes unless you eat meat. And meat gives you diabetes. No. So there's a correlatory thing. Causality needs looking into. Because there is an issue that if you eat more meat, you might just be a big old slob who loves a burger and also loves Diet Coke, and maybe Diet Coke gives you diabetes. Okay. But you've said there is no link, and this certainly doesn't show that there's no link. There's a questionable link.
They told us trans fats were good. Then, lo and behold, trans fats are the worst thing you can eat.
Now red meat. Look, we've done our trans story for the night. Let's move on. Story in the Telegraph now about why it's so important we stay in the EHRC, Nick.
Really?
Yeah, it's about the human rights.
Human rights. OK. This is the. What is this? The school.
Yeah.
Your intro is so oblique. I couldn't even figure it out. This is school breach. I mean, EHRC. How was I supposed to get that from that? School breached human rights by disciplining pupil for shiny shoes. OK, good. We're on the same page. This was the King Edward VI Academy in Spilsby, Lincolnshire, and it's an absurd story where the child was told their shoes were too shiny. Another child was told their trousers were too tight, and then they had to wear bigger ones and looked like a clown. And the parents are saying it's detrimental to the kids' mental health. It's all a bit silly. You should just do what the Michaela school does, have very strict discipline, but it's got to be consistent and it's got to be for a reason. It's true that schools can impose arbitrary standards, and it does sound like there might be some of that going on here. It's a non-story, OK?
Yeah, but arbitrary standards, that's the whole point of school uniforms.
That's true, and of school.
And you're teaching people how to fit within the system. Later on, they can break it. I mean, the point is, enforcing school uniforms has been proven to have a beneficial impact on the overall attainment and grades.
All the schools I went to, the comprehensive I went to especially, I never wore a school uniform. We went to those kind of...
And look how stupid you are.
Look how I turned out. And in fact, a few years before I went to that school, they had a policy of calling the teachers by their first name. The school was like invented in the 70s, and they used to negotiate when the breaks were. Oh, that's a good time. Yeah. But this one is just someone who heard vaguely about broken windows and thought, oh, let's do that with kids. Because, yeah, that's the problem with kids these days. Their shoes are just too darn shiny. If we can get rid of that radiance, we could get them some proper order. Oh, it's a load of rubbish.
I don't know. But when you see some of the impact that having, I mean, and having my kids in school and seeing the focus, it's a total pain. And I had to buy some, black shoes for them, and you get an example of sort of about 10 of the OK ones and 10 of the rubbish ones. And you have to find the line in because you want to get the slightly cool ones. There's like the geeky ones that no one wants with the buckles or whatever. And then you've got the kind of sort of fake trainery black shoes. And somewhere in the middle is just right where they're just a little bit cool but not crossing the line.
Teaching kids to bend the rules and not break them, that'll lead to a good society.
Well, I think that yes, I do believe that. That's literally my motto. Right, some ads now, and just the final section to go, but it'll be a classic one. We have urine energy drinks, erotic art in danger, and fake heart attacks. See you there.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sunday, the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to ordinary people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and kicking off with the Mail. And supposedly there are 2 places in England called Blackburn and Burnley. Steve, is this true?
Yes. Oh, I forgot I'm talking to a southerner. Oh, yeah. So head north of Watford, keep going, 2 places.
What's Watford? I'm a zone 2 kind of guy.
Why do people from Blackburn and Burnley sound different? It's not the setup to a joke. Scientists will scan people's mouths using ultrasound to understand why the accents are so dissimilar, even though they're 10 miles apart. Thank heavens, scientists. Don't worry about the cancer and the cold fusion. Finally answering the question, why, oh, why do people with different accents have different accents? And they're going to look into it. Professor Claire Nance is heading up the team. Also said we would especially love to work with families and people from South Asian communities so that we can learn more about all the different accents in East Lancashire. Why do people from South Asia sound like they've got different accents?
Well, please do an accent. Do a South Asian Blackburn accent.
Have a swing at it. Here's the worrying thing down the bottom of this story. 15% of people now pronounce the word 3 with an F, as opposed to just 2% in the 1950s.
I think I'm one of those.
Free.
Free.
You're doing it wrong.
3.
You're getting it wrong.
3. I mean, Nick, first of all, you're from around these parts, aren't you?
Well, my mum's from near these parts.
Can you do the accents?
You do a South
Burnley. Is it Burnley? I haven't checked lately. But Lancashire has a more sing-song sort of Lancashire, whereas Yorkshire's harsher and Lancashire's better.
Burnley.
No, that's definitely not it.
Well, OK, just help me out then.
My mum's from Bury, which is like Victoria Wood characters.
Oh, OK.
And yeah, look,
sounds right.
It's tragic that they're saying that northern accents are dying out in Britain, which is horrific. Probably because kids want to all sound like drill rappers or something. But it is a different world. I've lost my accent a bit being down here, and I feel terrible about that because it's not just different accents; it's different words. In Cumbria, we say "larlan," which means little. They have all these different words. I lived in Newcastle for a bit. They say "you're gonna know the knee." These aren't normal words, Steve. No. It's completely different words as well as dialect, and it's tragic that we're all in the world in general. We're all becoming one homogenous blob. This is globalism. Yeah. Team world, whatever it is. Whereas what we want is to be like, this is the dream, 10 miles apart, completely different. Shouldn't be able to even communicate at all. That's the dream. Just completely different languages, seconds apart.
I'm sure that's why we end up with all the accents that we've got. It's a way to know that other people are different.
They're the out-group.
Going back to the story, I mean, that's the interesting thing. It's talking with all this scientific bump that they're doing, it's like they're going to reveal the how, but they're not getting into the why at all. And also, what you were just saying earlier, Nick, it seems like it's going to be posh accents that are actually going to take over.
I know.
And there also seems to be a lot of words for splinter. Every word, there was like 20 words.
You've not been to the
northern words.
Because we've a lot of splinters in the north.
We build our houses out of wood still.
That's a lot from this story. Nick went method on this Telegraph piece. Tell us all about it, please, after you've brushed your teeth.
OK, that's obscure as well. This is energy drink made from urine, becomes Amazon bestseller. It's a drink called Prime. No, it's not. Sorry, Logan Paul. This is... So it was a crude stunt, that's what Amazon are calling it, by Channel 4 filmmakers, because they're saying that Amazon have these terrible policies where drivers are forced to urinate in bottles on their delivery runs. Of course, Amazon would probably argue, they're not forced to, they could just hold it. But also, they're saying that Amazon...
10 hours.
Yeah, they're saying Amazon executives have a completely distorted picture of the process. Anyway, so it's a kind of satire on Amazon. What they did was they took urine and they called it Release Energy Drink, which is quite witty, and they sold it on Amazon, but only the contacts of the person doing it bought it, who knew it was urine. But if that hadn't been the case, it would have actually been very dangerous. You know, it's quite a dangerous stunt, probably illegal.
Because isn't urine a sterile liquid?
No. Well, you know, if you've got an infection, then it's all
bacterial.
I lied to in the past.
Yeah.
I was told it was totally safe.
Yeah. No, that's the person who told you that had an agenda, Josh. Let's just say that.
But also, there was no risk, surely, because... if someone placed an order, you just didn't have to send the bottle. They could have just cancelled the sale.
But did they know at that time that was what was being sold? Had they got onto it quick enough?
It's the supplier routes. I don't think they stocked it all like a... They didn't put it in the
warehouse. It was drop-shipped, you're saying?
Yeah. Otherwise, imagine being part of that production team, having to fill all those bottles. It's for a bit.
Yeah. Well, is it a good bit? Because, I mean, look, it's raised awareness. They've done their little article here about this documentary. I'm still not 100% getting the connection between the selling of it and the fact that...
Well, they're saying if Amazon workers have to forced to do that, the irony would be let's force Amazon to sell it without them even noticing their own practice. They don't even notice what's on their own website.
It's just that one reach too far, like my links, really. Sticking with the Telegraph for some sticky art, Steve. Do you get that one?
Oh, yeah.
That one's not that.
I got that one.
I know what you're talking about, and I wish I didn't, because I pictured it. Ugh. Berlusconi family want to burn former PM's collection of erotic art.
Ooh, is that a Burnley accent, by the way?
But they want to burn it, can they not? Is it not flammable? What has he been doing with this artwork? They've inherited 25,000 portraits of varying eroticism. This is why you need a file on your hard drive that's been encrypted with 128-bit passwords, so that even if someone takes the hard drive and puts it in a new machine, they can't access that folder. Apparently, I'm just guessing.
So this is like old people porn, basically.
Yeah, Berlusconi wasn't known for his tech skills, was he? He's a bit of a boomer, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
he went old
that's
school.
where he's going wrong here. Yeah, all these he bought them.
This is like rich old porn.
Yeah, 25,000 pages.
You say that, but it's less fancy because apparently many of them were bought from late-night television shopping channels. It's way better than our JML. If ever you're up at late night, they know. And that's not all. Not only
that's
that.
where I get all of my art is from late-night
JML.
It does say that someone who works for questionable taste. I, for one, am shocked that Berlusconi did anything of questionable taste.
I mean, it's all in a warehouse. I mean, is that what he would have wanted? Surely he should have made it in the will that if you want the money, you've got to keep the art.
Yeah, you've got to look at it every day.
And the phrase varying eroticism, like, worries me. Like, what's at the lower end? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mona Lisa with her...
Just one out.
With boobs
That's
out.
better.
They've got Mona Lisa with the boobs.
You've been suddenly worried if you could even say that word halfway through.
Just sort of like watershed.
Yeah, you just committed to it. You couldn't think of a way of getting out of it.
Totally fine about talking anti-Semitism in different communities, but when it comes to saying...
It would explain a smile, just to...
Yeah, do you think that's what it was? It was sort of covering up. Right, this from the Eye, and Saudi Arabia have a controversial bid for the Women's World Cup, Nick.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia wants to host Women's World Cup as part of long-term football strategy. A few obvious problems immediately. How would they drive to the games? Okay, well, that's a satire on Saudi Arabia. You're saying as if that's a misogynist. It's a satire. It's a brilliant satire.
They drive very well to the games, Nick.
No, the point is they wouldn't be allowed. It's a satire on the regime.
Misogyny is when they get there, how would they park? That's
right. That's what. Thank you. Yeah, it's ridiculous because it's this. I mean, let's be fair. I mean, because women's football is like the most sort of woke lefty thing. It's like an ongoing HR nightmare. Someone kissed a woman, then was threatened with prison time. But obviously, so the gap between leftist women's football and a strict Islamic regime, bit of a problem. Although we do know sometimes the woke left does weirdly align with the strict Islamic world for some weird reason on various issues. Okay. But yeah, it's a weird meeting.
Okay, well look, finally let's go to the Mail, but this doesn't work in McDonald's, Steve, as I found out earlier.
Yeah, a con man fakes having a heart attack at 20 restaurants to avoid paying the bill. It's brilliant. You eat all the food, you drop to the floor, and they just call an ambulance. Off you go. Yeah. It wouldn't work for me. I've thought about it. I overeat in restaurants too much, that when I'm on the floor pretending, and they'll be like, oh, loosen his tie. Like, and do the belt as well. Oh, I shouldn't have had that extra thing. But he didn't get away with it because we're talking about it. But it does seem like quite a good little scam.
What do you think, Nick? Are you tempted to...
Well, his name was Adas, which I find weird. He was faking heart attacks, but his name was one letter off AIDS. I've just found that. Can we say that? We could say that.
It's
how do you fake that in a restaurant?
True.
Well, yeah, you're right. It would have been a longer scam.
To do the thing. Yeah, I don't think it would work in the UK. Supposedly, he sort of kept on just getting off because it was like sometimes it was only like 15
quid,
euros,
yeah.
You know. So it does, but yeah, I feel like in the UK it wouldn't do it. Anyway, right, let's go and check out Friday's front pages. We're going to have, first of all, the Daily Mail. There is no forgiveness for this thing, only total annihilation of Hamas. We will soon see Gaza from the inside. Telegraph, get ready to see Gaza from the inside. Guardian, warning that relief convoy for Gaza, too little, too late. The Times, do your bit to ease Israel crisis, Sunak urges Saudis. Mirror, reckless and callous. And finally, the Daily Star, freeze. And those were your front pages. That is all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Steve N. Allen and Nick Dixon. Headliners will be back tomorrow at the same time, where Andrew Doyle will be joined by Paul Cox and Lewis Schaefer. If you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Who is it?
We're here for the show.
More energy this time!
Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
Wow.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour, Sunday the 29th of October at 9 on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute. Kick it up a gear with me, Patrick Christie's, at drive time, 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, on the smart speaker app, and on the GB News app. And if you've got an Alexa, all you have to say is, Alexa, play GB News. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with me, Patrick Christie's, on GB News and GB News Radio.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Well, the debate has started. Should we take refugees from Gaza? I'll give you a very clear opinion on that in just a moment, on the day that Rishi Sunak goes to Israel. We'll look at the latest crime statistics. We're being told by the government crime is going down. I find it rather difficult to believe. And we'll look at how Brexit voters are feeling all these years on. There seems to be some sense of disappointment that the government simply hasn't done more. But before all of that, let's get the news with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. Rishi Sunak has met Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the Saudi capital Riyadh. It's his latest stop in a series of diplomatic meetings to prevent the conflict in the Middle East from escalating. The Saudi state news agency SPA posted a video on X of the pair shaking hands. Well, earlier in Jerusalem, the Prime Minister told the Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu he welcomed the decision to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza from Egypt and said the UK stood in solidarity with Israel. And Mr Netanyahu thanked him for visiting the country, calling it a strong statement of support in a time of darkness. Rishi Sunak stressed Israel must adhere to international law in Gaza and that the conflict must not spread elsewhere.
I've had good, productive conversations with both Prime Minister Netanyahu and the Israeli President Herzog. Among other things, we discussed the importance of this conflict not escalating regionally and the importance of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza to help people who need it. I also had the opportunity to meet families of British nationals who have been taken hostage. We're doing absolutely everything we can to get them home.
Well, families of children and teenagers held captive in the Gaza Strip have been holding a press conference in Tel Aviv. Israel says more than 200 hostages were taken when Hamas attacked on October the 7th. One Israeli mother begged Hamas to release her kidnapped children.
The whole world have to scream
and to ask for humanity. And I think, and I pray, and I beg in, and I ask even Hamas, this moment you have the opportunity to show that you still have humanity. I'm asking the whole world and your voice to scream till the sky is open. Bring our children home.
Asylum seekers have returned to the Bibi Stock home in Portland, despite activists attempting to prevent it from happening. Just Stop Oil protesters obstructed a coach carrying migrants, holding banners reading "No prison ships" and "Demand humanity." All 39 people were removed from the barge in August after Legionella bacteria was discovered. And more than 400 homes have been asked to evacuate in the Scottish town of Brechin in preparation for the arrival of Storm Babette. A red weather warning has been issued, meaning there is a risk to life with extensive flooding and strong winds, stronger than 70 miles an hour, forecast. This is GB News, live across the UK. I'll be back with more a little later, but now it's over to Nigel.
Good evening. Well, it was the Scottish Minister, Humza Yousaf, who kicked the debate off yesterday. I mentioned it briefly at the end of the show last night. He is arguing that we should take people, maybe a lot of people, from Gaza. This is what the Scottish First Minister had to say.
There are currently 1 million people displaced within Gaza. So therefore, I'm calling today on the international community to commit to a worldwide refugee programme for the people of Gaza. I'm calling on the UK government to take 2 urgent steps. Firstly, they should immediately begin work on the creation of a refugee resettlement scheme for those in Gaza who want to and, of course, are able to leave. And when they do so, Scotland is willing to be the first country in the UK to offer safety and sanctuary to those who are caught up in these terrible attacks.
Well, there we are. Scotland is ready, but he's really saying the whole of the UK should be ready. Now, let's be clear about one thing. Since 2016, we have taken in over 500,000 people, 500,000 people as refugees. We've been told it's all because of exceptional circumstances in Hong Kong, in Syria, in Afghanistan, and of course, more recently, in Ukraine. The numbers are so high because they're exceptional. But hey, here comes yet another exception. And you know something? The UNHCR say there are 80 million people around the world who are living in war zones who potentially could qualify as refugees. I would make the argument that if you add to that the hordes of young men crossing the English Channel, who we have to put up in 400 hotels, in private residences, and now, of course, back on barges in Dorset, that we simply can't cope. And in terms of numbers, we should say enough. What I find even more interesting is the reaction of people who are neighbours to Gaza. For example, take what the Egyptian president said yesterday. He said what is happening now in Gaza is an attempt to force civilian residents to take refuge and migrate to Egypt, which should not be accepted. Egypt rejects any attempt to resolve the Palestinian issue by military means or through the forced displacement of Palestinians from their land, which would come at the expense of other countries of the region. He went on to say that the Egyptian people would go out and protest in their millions if called upon to do so. So Egypt will not be taking any refugees from Gaza. King Abdullah II of Jordan said, no refugees in Jordan, no refugees in Egypt. And let's remind ourselves, shall we? Let's remind ourselves that Saudi Arabia did not take a single refugee from Syria because they were worried it would affect their culture and their safety in Saudi Arabia. These are words that maybe we ought to listen to. And of course, we've had over the course of the last week these marches that have taken place in London, in Belfast, in Birmingham, in Edinburgh, in Manchester, marches at which people who live within our communities but have a different set of values to those of the more settled population have been out, in some cases, openly celebrating terrorist atrocities. Now, I'm going to give you some stats from Denmark that are very shocking. In 1992, Denmark gave refuge to 321 Palestinians. By 2019, the government produced results for what had happened to them. 64% of those that had been given refuge had obtained criminal records. 34% of their children had obtained criminal records. And bear in mind, many of the children hadn't yet grown up. And the vast majority were living on welfare. That particular influx of refugees that went in to Denmark proved to be a mistake and a complete disaster. And that's before Hamas really got into gear. I'd ask Hamza Youssef and anyone that thinks we should take large numbers of people from Gaza, why on earth should we risk our national security? Frankly,